The Houston sawmill's in full production. Russian pine from a Ural motorcycle crate. Making a treasure chest. This is my rabbit joint. I've got 7/16 thick here and 1/4 inch deep here. This will be inletted into the sides. It'll make a rabbit that'll go in. It's actually a tenon. Will go into a mortar. So this is called a rabbit joint because it's a step joint. I'm just cleaning it up. I'm going to make my groove 3/8 up here and then 7/16 wide. But I'm going to stop. I don't want to run all the way to the edge because then I'll have a hole in my dovetail. Now I'm marking out for my dovetails. So I figured which pieces are. This is the right side. This is the left side. And which is inner and outer. And also this is the front. And the pieces of the back. And these will be marked for a slot along here for this tenon. And I'm going to do that on the table saw, but it's too wet. It's rainy and drizzly. It's too wet to take the table saw out and cut those, so I'll do that later, but I can go on to this. What I have to do is mark the inside. This is the inside of the box, although this will be on the bottom. So this distance, I've got 2 lines here. Is that distance there. And I've also got it marked on the front and the back. So then what I did for my dovetails, I know which is the top because the lip will be on the inside, and then the mortise for the bottom will be on the inside. So I've got, this is the distance from the bottom, and so what I did, I came up, I wanted a 1/2 inch to the first tail, so I came down, this will be a 1/4 inch to this edge, came down 1/2 inch here, came up 1/2 inch here. I'm doing a 10-degree dovetail, so I set my little gauge here and marked, I want a 3/4 inch width on the tail here, so I marked one, started one there, one there, and then I did the same thing down here. And so halfway between the 3/4 inch wide tail is 3/8 of an inch here. Then this distance here, got it marked on one of these to show it a little easier than this one. Distance between the centers here. First I drew one out. I went with a mark in the middle and then divided that, and it was 5. But that was on this one. It looked too cluttered. There were just too many. I didn't need that many tails. I'd rather have the wider pins here, so I divided it into thirds. And then it doesn't have to be perfect because each one's going to match its own pins. And then 3/4 of an inch, 3/8 of an inch either side of center, 3/4 inch tail, and then use my bevel gauge to mark the sides of the tails there. And it'll be cut down to this line here. That's on both sides, which is the size of the inside of the bottom. I'm doing the tails on the ends on this box because I think it's the fighting these tails going on those pins and not having to fight such a wide tenon here. I think it'd be easy to do them, and most of them are like that. They have the pins visible from the front and the tails visible from the side. In case I did it the other way, but I guess you can do it either way. Yeah, I've got my rabbit on top cut to give me my lip on the inside. Just had the blade set 1/4 inch up, and now I'm going to cut the mortise for the bottom tenons. It'll be also on the inside, but on the bottom, and I've marked where I want the slot to end at about 1/2 inch from the corner. So I got a mark on here, and then I've got tape where the blade cuts through here. Will be the end of the cut. These points here. So what I'm going to do is lower it down on this back one and then push it in. So this one, and so I should get a cut going that's ending a ½ inch from the corner. And I'll do that on the inside of all the pieces on the bottom. And then I've got the saw set 3/8 of an inch from the fence to allow for this distance here, and then I'm going to cut my grooves till I'm about 7/16. 3 more cuts. I'm going to make this cut on each one, and then I'll move it out and make those 3 cuts on each one. And I have to clean up my mortises a little bit. And I can prepare my tenons. I've come back in and notched off a ½ inch from the corner point here and cut that off to make for this area here. I don't like to cut these out straight or bring them out to here because this is a lot of the strength of this ledge which supports the bottom, so I like to keep as much of that as I can. We have a pattern here for a 10-inch diameter, 5-inch radius, which is what the saw blade was. It cut this, so I'm lay that on there and mark that, then I'll file that radius on each one of these to allow for this curved part of the saw cut right there. Notice how I'm designing the turtleback top. Just have to get dimension that looks right. This is what, 9.5, I think. 8.5, the width of the box. And I've looked about right. I figured 3 inches here. And come up 1.5 inches here. And what I used, it looked about right. I used my 10-inch diameter from saw blade and put my initial curve there. Then I came on the sides with the same thing from radius from where I want this to end to where it blends in with this curve. That on both sides. And then for the top, I measured this distance along this curve and it was 7.5, and I want to have 5 pieces. I want to have 1 piece here centered, then 2 pieces either side make 5. So divide 7.5 times 5 and got 1.5. So I measured out 1.5. Started out here 1.5. They don't have to be exact. And 1.5, and this will be 1.5 pretty much. So then I laid my radius lines out where those joints will be. And then I came, because of this curve, I'm allowing 1/8 of an inch thickness. I'm using 3/4 inch, so on each one of these I came down 5/8. 5/8, because then I'll grind. I'll have plenty of wood to grind this curve in. 5/8 here and 5/8 here, and then drew the lines across here. Which these will be the ends of the pieces that plank the top, and this area here will be each end of the top, the front and the back, and then these will be the top planks. This and this will probably be dovetail, but I'll probably fasten these with screws. So I could put a dovetail in here. And that would work. And these will be screwed and plugged. Or I could use wooden dowels. That would work too. Staying outside the line here because I'm going to finish these up with a chisel. Maybe I just got to get the wood out of there. And the pins are going to go. I'm truing up all these faces. With the chisel, I got it pretty sharp. And true as flat as I can get them. And square, because this has to slide on the pin, so I want it as square as possible. I'm going by my reference line up here from my square. Well, I found this method seems to work the best for me for getting these the bases here, these tails, even and straight. Clamp a straight board along the line there. You got to have your line across perpendicular so the line on the other side lines up with the line on this side the best you can. And I go halfway across here. You got to keep the tool sharp. They say you'll spend more time on your stone almost than you do cutting. And just take a little bit at a time. The more accurate you can cut, the less chiseling you have to do. That's what I do every day. If I get down to that line. And turn it around and go from the other side. I have a board here to back it up so I don't split anything off. I've got the right side and the front, so I know where they're going to line up. Maybe I'll just put a mark here and a mark here. And then I'm going to mark areas in here. Where the pins are going to be. Straight lines here. I'll be cutting out where the tails go. Leaving the pins. And I just have to cut this section out. Just like I did the areas here. So the tails will slide in down into there. Oops, wrong way. That's why it's important to get it the right corners together. Now before I do the final fit on these ends, I drill them for the screws on my lifting rings here. But what I like to do is I like to through bolt them with number 10 brass machine screws. I'll round these heads off because they're stronger and will be less likely to break and if there's a heavy load in the box. So what I'm doing is setting the nuts into the wood. It's a tedious process, but it works pretty good. Just cut around it with the knife. I'm just inletting them. This one here is I've inlet. I inlet them so they're just below the surface. They don't interfere with anything in the box, but you're not going to pull those out of there. You'd break the wood first. I'm just cutting down. Then I use my inletting chisels to dig this out. I like this one because I just go down in with it like that on the flats. And I use this one to pick it out with. When I'm fitting the dovetails, see this piece is the front, this is the right side. They'll only go where the side that they were drawn on. So what I've done, what I like to do, I make a mark to identify which corners go together. You can use letters, you can use numbers. I just use one mark for this side here, and the other side I've got 2 marks, and then 2 marks on the other piece that it fits in, so that way you know you're always fitting the same one. So it looks like what I got to do here is take a little bit off of here, a little bit off of here, a little bit off of here, so that these I have gaps. So I'm going to do that. Just going to use my knife. The corner's nice and sharp. Okay, that looks pretty good now. It doesn't. Well, it almost starts a little bit. That's a good sign. So now I just have to figure where I've got to shave the sides. Got these tails as straight, flat as I can get them, so I just have to widen these slots. Some of them I won't, but some of them I will. I'm gonna have to mount quite a bit. Not too much. Now I just have to take these little edges out here. little bit at a time. Try to keep these corners sharp. Okay. That's a little better now. She's starting to go down in there. I can kind of see where there's no gap. These ones that I got them okay there. I gotta take some off of here. That's okay. A little off of here. It's just a matter of seeing where they rub and taking them down. You can kind of see it too. Yeah, oh yeah. And she's going. Just keep that up. Pretty soon she'll settle down on the bottom. Then I can see if any of these have gaps, I can lower them so that they're kind of even all the way across there. And that's done. I got a few gaps. I'll just pack them with wood shavings, sawdust. It's not perfect. Very few hand-cut dovetails are. I guess the longer you do it, the better you get at it. Pretty new at it, so I'll take this. This is okay. That's number one. Here's number two. Much better. I'm getting better already. Okay. I'm going to do a trial assembly. Got the tins. They're mortised. I got to loosen that one up a little bit. Let's see how she goes. Line up the edges with my marks there. Yeah, pretty much together. And when it gets all together and glued up, then I'll cut these all down, level them off. I'm doing my dry fit here. I've got a bit of a gap up there. Everything else is pretty good. So what I'm going to do is take the bottoms of these down just a little bit, so I can close up that gap. Everything else I think will clamp together pretty good. That's looking pretty good, so I'm going to go with that. Making some walnut dust to pack in around those dovetails to fill in any gaps. Glue up time. Since I have to put this together all at one time, what I'm trying to do is get a layer of glue on everything and then the whole thing go together. Because this glue tacks up so quick that once you get it on there, you only have a few minutes before it tacks up. So anyway, here goes. Now I got it all filed and sanded down. I had to go back and pack some stuff in some of the joints, but I got everything pretty much closed up. So now what I'm doing, I'm using a rabbit plane. Good friend gave this to me, and it'll do cut a rabbit joint, which is that one's done. With this one, what I'm doing, I'm taking these down, all down until they're a 1/4 inch thick lip all the way around it. So I've got a marked on there. Pointer down it is, a rabbit plane, because this is a rabbit joint when it's a step joint like this. So this is just what I needed to do this with. So I'm going to take all these down. So they're about a 1/4 inch, because when I do top pieces, they're going to have to fit over the top of them. And I need room. I need at least a 1/2 inch back here for a hinge. So now I got to make the bulkheads, what we'd call it on a boat, the end frames. So I measured out and put the dovetails here. So I measured that out and drawn them out on these. And there'll be a groove in here that'll fit over the lip there. And I'll put my dovetails in. I can't dovetail planks up here because you start running into cross grain. Good dovetails only work going this way. You try to go this way, these will just break off. So there's no strength. So yeah, you can't do dovetails up here. So I'll probably do screws and plugged holes. I could do wooden pins, but I think the screws are stronger and they pull everything together. So now I'm going to cut these out. I've got my end pieces made now. Now I got to make the front and the back. So I got these pieces, marked B for back, F for front here, and I marked a line right at the edge of this inside here and out here. And this rabbit is going to be, I'm going to cut these rabbits before I do the dovetails, because it's a blind rabbit. It has to end there, otherwise I'll have a big hole, a big square hole in the end. And I put this piece on there. So it's got to end abruptly right there, where it goes on over the lip. So I'm just going to have to cut down with a knife, and cut in here with a chisel, and use a chisel to remove this wood. So it's going to take a little longer than the rabbit plane, but I can't use the rabbit plane because it has to run straight through, and I got to have an end here. The top's all dovetailed together, so I'm going to put some wax paper on these corners. I'm going to glue it up in place, clamp it on in place. Now I'm going to plank up the top, and I'm going to do it in 5 pieces, 2 on a side and then 1 shutter in the middle, and I can adjust that to whatever gap I have. First thing I got to do is for these outer planks is to cut this angle here. Line it up with that, so I've got, it turns out to be a 30-degree angle here. It's a 60-degree on here, which is 120 degree from here. This angle's 120 degrees. But that makes this angle in here 30 degrees, so I can put that on the table saw and get an initial cut at 30 degrees. Then I'll work it down with the planes and the files until it just fits right into here. And I'll cut it off at this point and put a bevel on it, half of this angle here. Doesn't really matter because I'll fit this plank to this plank, and then I'll fit this plank to this plank, and then the shutter plank will fit to both. I'm fitting the first planks in now. I've got this angle cut. I've been filing it so that it's in there pretty nice. Now to get this angle here, I'm marking it where I want the next plank to start, and I want an angle in between the right angle, so I'm going to right angle there and a right angle there. So I want it to come in about here. So I measure that angle. Doesn't have to be perfect. I'm going to fit the other plank to it. Looks like 7 degrees. And then I'll draw a line across here to where it meets on the other side. And I'll plane that down. So planking up a boat, each plank will be made to fit in its own spot. And I've got my angles laid out in the end, and I've drawn a line on either side. Now it's just a matter of planing it down to the line. I'm going to drill these for the screws. Now I'm using a number 8 1.5" screw with a bore in a 3/8 hole, so I can turn some wooden plugs to go in these. And I've marked on the inside here and come over 5/16. This is going to end up being between 5/8 and 3/4. And I want this kind of in the middle, so I'm going line 5/16. Centered on here. I'll drill out about a 1/4 inch deep so I can put a nice thick plug in there, because I'm going to be grinding this down to get the shape of that top. And here's the top so far. Got everything marked: R for right, F for front, B for back, and this for the front. There's a knot in the back. Interesting is this will go on reverse. They usually don't, but if it fits that way, that's the way it was set up on there. So now I have to make the filler piece, the king plank, the shutter piece, whatever. So I'm going to start the same way. I'm going to start by cutting this angle on here, planing this angle on here, and I'll use that to line up this side, and then I'll start planing this angle and leave a little big, and gradually it'll fit down in there. Yeah, that's settling down in place. I switched these in for this one in for end because of this knot here. I didn't want this knot to end up on the edge, so I made this my starting edge. And now she's settling down, and I got the a little bit of high spot in the middle, so I'm just watching my angles and taking it down on the old sanding board, hillbilly belt sander. I'm just going to take her down until she fits, and I can bear down on either end, or I could change the angles a little bit if I need to. Take it off that nice and flat. Take it off where I need to make it fit right in there. Okay, it's getting down there. Right in the middle here. Can't get in a hurry now. There's actually a very fine line between, see this back here, this edge fits down there already. Between a nice fit and having a bad gap. Okay, that's it. So now I have to just get a scrap piece and cut some plugs. Plug these holes. I need 10 3/8 Russian pine plugs. And I know just where to get them. The ends and the front and back, the top are all sanded now. So I need to finish shaping the top, so I've laid out my pattern here. And I want to leave as much wood as possible, so I figure I can come up here 1 3/4 on the side and use that. And that will just give me a rough line to work to. I'll use that on all sides. I'll mark all 4 sides 1 3/4. And back for more grinding. I've been using for major wood removal a number 36 disc and a 4.5-inch grinder. I'm finishing it with a 60, and then I've got a piece of 100 grit on the sander, the half sheet sander, and I finish it with that. And everything else is going to be done by hand, final hand sanded, do the final shaping with the files and sanding blocks, the usual stuff. You know, I'm just truing everything up with my curved scrapers, getting rid of all the tool marks, grinding marks, and I'll give it a good sand and finish rounding these corners over. And it's rough sanded now, so I'm going to fit the hinges, and I have to put the feet on the bottom, and then be ready for final sanding with 220 and 320, and then stain and true oil. I've got my hinges inlet into the edges here. So what I'm going to do, so I know I get these in the right place, I got the hot glue heating up here. I'm going to put a dab of hot glue on each one, and then I'm going to set this thing right on there, even everything up right where I want it. And set it down on there. When the glue sets up, I'll take the screws out and then I'll go around those hinges with the knife and inlet those. And then they should go on and the lid should fit. At least it's worked that way in the past. I decided to glue a 1/2 inch wide by, this is 1/8 inch, I'll sand it down to a little over 1/16 wood strip around 1/4 inch down from the top all the way around, because I want to line this with felt, and that gives a place to dead end the felt lining on, so when stuff goes in and out of the box it won't tend to fray the upper edge of the felt. So I'm just going to put a strip of this around, and so I'll sand it down. It'll just be a little ridge of wood protecting the upper edge of the felt. Now I'm making 4 of these little feet, each about 1/4 inch pine, 1.5 inch square. I'm just beveling the sides and rounding them off. These are going to go on the bottom to keep the chest up off of whatever surface it's sitting on. And I have felt pads that'll go on these. That'll be a non-marring surface. Well, these will be my feet. And I'll put them about 3/8 an inch in. 7/16. And so they overlap the joint a little bit, even them up. And I'm going to put each one with one number 6 1/2 inch long brass screw right in the middle. I'll countersink it just slightly, and the felt pad will go over and cover it. I got my feet on there. I got them all leveled out, so that's nice and flat now. And I got my areas cut out for my hinges. I've sanded everything with 150 grit. Now I'm going to raise the grain. Just going to dampen it, not really wet. a little water to raise the grain for sanding with 220 and then 320. What this does, it actually does raise the grain, and it'll heal some minor imperfections, and it'll show up imperfections. And then when you sand it down, it just gets a whole lot smoother. And also it helps make the grain stand out and actually swell a lot of little small cracks closed. I don't want to get it too red, I don't want to warp it. Just down. You can see what it's going to look like too. It's going to clean. Not dry, they'll give it a good going over with 220. I'll probably raise it one more time and go over it with the 320. Oh. And it should be ready to stain in oil. When it dries, it'll be slightly rough, but then when you sand it down, it gets everything down nice and even and very smooth. I'm working her down with 220 now. 220, if you get after, you can actually change the shape of it, but it mainly smooths everything up, blends everything out. Sanding, and more sanding. When you think you're done sanding, sand just a little bit more. When you reach a point, you say that's it, I've had enough sand. Just a smooth enough. I'm not there yet. We'll get the inside. I've got the box stained now. I like to use, I don't like the wood stains from the hardware store because they seem blotchy. I use Tandy leather dye. This is Java Brown. I find that it's a water-based stain, and I find it gives a much better appearance than the stains I get at the hardware store. It's not blotchy, and also it doesn't seal the wood so that it allows the oil to penetrate, because I'm going to use true oil on this. So yeah, I tried some other stain, but I ended up sanding it all off and going with the leather dye. I use it on gun stocks and it works really well. And that's soaking that true oil up like a sponge. And I'm really liking the way that's coming out. That's going to be a really pretty treasure chest. This is after 6 coats of true oil, rubbed out between coats with extra fine steel wool. I really like it. Not really nice. I was going to just use 4, but I use 6 on the gun stocks. It seems like the last 2 really fill up any little spots. gaps or anything. It makes it look really nice, and it's really well protected. Just every once in a while to start looking scruffy, steel wool it down and rub on some more coats of true oil. It should stand the test of time. I'm putting a key lock in it, full mortise key lock. Setting it down there, leaving about 1/8 of an inch of wood here. And mortise set down in there. Just a little bit at a time. I'm making these little latches. I don't like the ones you can buy. They're just pretty chintzy, and I'm making these out of the 1/8 inch brass plate. I drew out a diagram what I want. I think it's 1.5 inches between centers, and these are just little go-ons with screws. Got this piece of, it's actually 90 thousandths brass that I'm going to use to make the strike plate. Because the strike plate that comes with the lock is barely 60 thousandths, and it's got a lot of slop. All right. cut that out and allow this to go up in there. You got her set in pretty flush there. This latch. It's a little more play than I want, so I'm going to set her in a little deeper so there's just barely any play at all. And that's nice, a little bit of drag, barely a little drag, no play. That's just what I wanted. We'll let that stick up a little bit above here. When the glue dries, I'll trim that off even. Here's the finished chest. Got my little homemade latches on here. Got all the felt lining inside and the chain, so she's done.